O'Toole's pitch to the white supremacists in his party has been well documented at this point. The guy is walking around saying Canada first. The guy is walking around releasing tweets that not only mimic, but also follow Nazi slogans and Nazi tweets, or Nazi tweets, but Nazi slogans. Their 1488 formula. Heavy sarcasm. Oh, yes, okay. And, but also the party is taking out ads in a cult, in a paper that is owned by a cult that is a racial purity cult. Like, I just no longer know what people need to see. Like, do they literally need to see Aaron O'Toole walking around with a swastika, like, on his forehead or something? Is that literally what needs to happen? Hey, Misty, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm just glad you're here, Misty. And so when you start talking about the fact that the Conservative Party has been taken over by a white supremacist movement, that the Canada First movement is well organized with the intention of taking over the Conservative Party, and it looks like they're largely being successful, no one takes you seriously. So it's another form of denialism, just like the climate change denial, just like the failure of capitalism, that level of denial, that Jesus forgives, all of that kind of stuff. There's just the heavy, heavy denialism that's coming from the far right. And moreover, it's looking as though the people who are voting Conservative are happy with the suffering that's going to be spread by the Conservatives. That the Conservatives are going to commit austerity, and the people who are voting for them are saying, like, yeah, those people deserve it. They deserve the suffering that's going to be inflicted, even though it's going to cost extra, even though it's going to cost more. Those people deserve it, so we say that that's how it's going to be. It looks to me like the Liberals are giving up. What I'm seeing is essentially capitulation, that any political party with even a tiny little brain in their head that was actually interested in maintaining power would at least offer something, right? But they're not offering anything. The Liberals are not coming out with anything. And, well, and what it looks like to me is it looks like, here's the narrative that I think I'm starting to see. Because you got to remember that the Liberals and the Conservatives are allies. They work together, and that to maintain the system of neoliberal capitalism, this failed religious ideology that doesn't actually work, the only solution for the neoliberals is to commit austerity against the public. But during the pandemic, they were willing to commit to socialism. They were willing to actually help the populace, because the alternative would have been the United States, and we know what that looks like. That the horror and the despair that's coming out of the United States is far more costly and far more difficult to deal with than simply, using socialist ideas and actually helping the populace with things like the CERB, with things like this. But now the Liberals are fairly aware that, well, okay, if we continue acting in this way and we continue going towards socialism, it's going to mean that our owners are not going to be happy with us, and that our owners are going to steadily abandon us, and that our owners are going to steadily no longer work with us. So we have to commit to austerity, and the Liberals know this. That's why they were cutting the CRB. That's why they were doing all this kind of stuff. But they don't want to, right? They don't necessarily want to, because, like, what is a liberal but a conservative with a conscience? But the conscience is not strong enough to overwhelm the fascist organizations that exist within the capitalist structures. And so it looks to me like the Liberals are doing what Liberals do, which is they're taking the knee. They're going to capitulate power to the Conservatives, just like Liberals always do, and they're just going to let their allies, the Conservatives, commit to the plan of austerity to make them look like the bad guys, so that when the populace revolts against the austerity that is being committed by both the Liberals and the Conservatives, the allies, well, then the populace will bounce off the Conservatives and go back to liberalism, right? And the ball keeps getting passed forth, back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth, over and over and over and over again, because the populace is largely gullible. doesn't understand that this is an alliance, that these two organizations work together in tandem, that they plan, that they organize, right? That any disagreements that exist between these two organizations are very superficial. But when it comes to actual structural issues and the structural issues of capital, they work together. And that's what you're going to see. If you see a conservative minority come in, people are saying already, like, oh, conservative minority, well, that means they'll work with the NDP or maybe the Bloc or any of that kind of stuff. That's not going to happen. The conservatives are going to work with the liberals because they're allies, right? That's what's going to happen, that the conservatives are going to want to put in a policy of austerity, that the conservatives are the ones that are going to want to do all this kind of stuff, and the liberals are going to go, okay, and they're going to go along with it. Because the liberals don't care, right? The conservatives are their allies. And and I actually genuinely do believe that Justin Trudeau wants out. I think that Justin Trudeau is done. I think that he had his time as prime minister. He realized that it's actually a job and that it's actually difficult to do, to be the leader of a country, right? He realized that he knows that his legacy is a failure, right? Like, he has a worse legacy than Stephen Harper. Like, Stephen Harper's legacy is going to be more long-lasting and permanently, structurally tied to the fate of Canada than Justin Trudeau's. Like, what's Justin Trudeau's legacy? Like, honestly, can someone put in the chat? Can someone respond? What's Justin Trudeau's legacy? And in my view, this is what Canadians are revolting against. This is what Canadians are kind of spitting at Trudeau for. Because they're like, what's Trudeau's legacy? Sure, he put in the CERB, but then he immediately set out to dismantle it. Like, what's his legacy? And if he's not willing to stand up and actually fight for his legacy, yeah, weed, that's actually a fine response, the legalizing of weed, of marijuana, even though it was kind of done in this half-assed sort of way. Didn't pardon anybody, right? That kind of thing. But, like, the Harper government put in the childcare benefit, reduced child poverty in this country by 50%, right? When Stephen Harper came into power, we had one trade deal with America, which Harper said was collapsing, that we need to disconnect our wagon from their star. And so when he left office, we had 50 trade deals with 50 different nations, right? Like, that's significant. Like, that's a legacy, right? You want to talk about legacies? That's a legacy. And that isn't to say that Harper was like the greatest prime minister ever. He had many failings as a prime minister and as a leader, which makes sense given his white supremacy and his fundamentalist Christian background, right? And so there's an article that I found here. So first of all, it's good to point out, Aaron O'Toole has hired the UK consultants who helped Boris Johnson and the Brexiteers win. This is a significant threat. This is a significant threat. People are talking as though this minority is just going to be a minority and that's it. We still have a bit of time before this election. We've still got over 2 weeks, right? That's plenty of time for these guys. It's plenty of time for these effective grifters and effective liars to grift a gullible and compliant populace to change this minority into a majority. And we as leftists need to be prepared for it. We need to be prepared for it, and we need to be honest about it. We need to be honest that it is possible that we will get a majority government. In a funny kind of way, Misty, I know that you're in a situation where this news might really matter to you. The only party that's actually running a platform saying that they're going to double disability services in Canada are the Conservatives. And so it's extremely possible that the Conservatives, should they get in, are going to hold up an increase in spending in disability services as a shield so that when they use their sword to lay waste to the populace, they'll be able to deflect criticisms away from themselves by increasing support for the disabled. So they'll abandon the populace through heavy austerity while holding up this shield, which they need. It's the number one thing that the Conservatives need right now, is they need to show that they're capable of compassion. And so faking it is good enough, right? Just, we don't need to actually have compassion. We just need to appear as though we have compassion. And one way of doing that is picking a disenfranchised group and helping them. while destroying everyone else. And so it looks as though it's going to be the disabled. So this is a significant threat. A majority conservative government is possible. Not only is it possible, now that this is on board, I actually think that it's the most likely outcome. And we have to be prepared for it. We have to accept it. We have to just remind ourselves that Canadians are not very politically astute. There is a lot of denial, especially regarding the Conservatives. There's a lot of denialism that happens because people don't want to believe that any Canadian is possible of being a Nazi, right? They don't want to believe that any Canadian is possible, that it's possible for them to be white supremacist, let alone a heavily organized and politically motivated group like Canada First, right? So this is something that we need to expect and anticipate, or else when it happens, we're going to be obliterated. Like we're going to spend 6 months just recovering, right? I would prefer that we spend those first 6 months organizing instead of recovering. And so we need to be very upfront about it. We need to be aware that not only is it possible that the Conservatives are going to get their majority, it's likely. Because what I've seen over this last week has convinced me beyond the shadow of a doubt. Like, Canadians are either completely fine with white supremacy in their country, or they're just completely unaware of it. So they're either complicit or in denial. And that's very dangerous. And the truth is that the media is not reporting on it. Like everything that I talk about in regards to Aaron O'Toole, no, the Toronto Star doesn't talk about it, Globe and Mail doesn't talk about it, National Post, Global News, CTV, CBC, nobody talks about it. So the media is covering for the Conservatives. They're covering for these white supremacist groups that we know are actively working in the Conservative Party, that we know are actively working in the Conservative Party. And like, why is it that, all these news organizations are a blackface scandal? That's completely fine. But if you give money to a newspaper, public funds no less, to a newspaper that is owned by a literal racial purity cult, that's fine. No need to report on that. No controversy there, right? No controversy there. If Aaron O'Toole is walking around saying white supremacist slogans, no controversy there. Don't need to even have an opinion article on it. No, not even an opinion article. The failure of our media to protect us from white supremacy and to protect us from fascists and Nazis has been astounding. It is astounding to watch our media abandon us in this regard and refuse to actually stand up and say, if you want to vote conservative, but at least know who you're voting for, right? And all they're doing is they're covering. They're just covering for these conservatives because the conservatives are the ones that largely own the media apparatus, right? And these conservatives are fine with the white supremacists in their party. As long as they vote conservative, they don't care, right? They don't care. So this is the situation that we find ourselves in here in Canada. And I mean, and it must be pointed out, like, there's one of the federal parties is literally offering stuff. Not only offering stuff, but offering things, hey Crouching, how you doing, bud? Not only offering stuff, but offering stuff that is extremely popular. Raising taxes on the wealthy, 92% support within the populace. Don't commit austerity against the populace, 92%, right? And who's the party that's actually talking that way and who's actually offering that things? Oh, the party run by the brown guy with the big beard and the turban, right? And so what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing a candidate that's picking up the phone and saying, Jagmeet Singh? Oh, yeah, I really like Jagmeet Singh. Yeah, oh, yeah, I like him. Yeah, he seems really great. Yeah. Click. I will never vote for a brown man. That is what is happening. That the populace is on the phone, being all nicey nice about it, hanging up, and then saying to each other, no, I'm not voting for that brown guy. That's not what's happening, right? So, because what else could it possibly be? Like, explain this to me. What else could it possibly be? That, hey, Bumbleguppy, good to see you. Because, like, if Jagmeet Singh was a white man named, like, Patrick Stevenson, or something, right? People would be like, wow, he wants to raise taxes on the wealthy just like 92% of us want. Oh, wow, he wants to do this, he wants to do that, he wants to do this, right? If Jagmeet Singh was like named, you know, Jason Singer, he was just like a white dude, I think people would be voting for him. I think people would be going towards him in droves. I think it would be at least competitive. But Jagmeet Singh's numbers haven't moved an inch. They haven't gone up at all. Like, you can see it. It's very black and white. Like, error, 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 error. Wah, 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 wah. Okay, I can't show it to you. I can't show it to you. But I mean, like, if anything, his numbers have declined over aggregate, right? He used to have 20%. Now he's got 19.5, right? Like, and why? I genuinely want someone to explain it to me. He's the only one actually offering anything. He's the only one actually giving policies. And if he looked like Jack Layton, people would be going crazy for him. They'd be gobsmacked for him. But he doesn't look like Jack Layton. And I think that that's the problem, and I think that we can clearly state that that's the problem.